now we're just sort of, certainly over the last 5 years, we've kind of moved more aggressively into the crypto world. And I think it used to be seen as a sort of, oh, it'll be like my cousin who's a real nerd and he sits in his basement and he mined a couple of cryptocurrency. Like, it was this sort of cliche of, the geek might get involved in it, but now it's very much kind of knocking at the door of the mainstream, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So what's your sense of how that's going to mature over the next 2 to 5 years? Again, I'm asking you to look in your crystal ball, but is crypto something that is troubling or exciting people in the hedge fund world?
I would say definitely exciting, right? So crypto is only troubling if you're a central banker or you are a politician, frankly. There's a famous guy, and if they haven't turned off already, and they are interested in what we're saying, there's another podcast called Real Vision by a guy called Raoul Pal, and he talks about this as being basically as hoovering up the whole of investment assets, right? So if you think about it, the beauty of crypto, right, and the beauty of Bitcoin specifically, is it's finite, right? So there's only a finite amount of it in the world, right? Like gold, I think there's a statistic where gold is, if you put all of the gold in the world that's ever been mined together, it would fit underneath the Eiffel Tower in Paris.
Right.
Right. And Bitcoin is the same concept. It's a finite asset. There's a limit on how much there will ever be.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's uncorruptible. Right. What I mean by that is the central banks can't fuck with it. Right?
Yeah.
They can't try and print more of it. Right. So for those of us who are looking and going, oh, hang on a second, I don't believe these inflation statistics that the government, are giving us. I don't believe RPI and CPI and how we benchmark nurses' wages and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I actually think real world inflation, the inflation that I see when I go to the shops or, I want to buy a house, it's been way more than that. So for me, you've got gold, which is your store of value, right? That's your real value. And to me, you should price everything against gold, right? So your house is worth X number of ounces of gold, right? Yeah. And actually, if you look at those numbers, those are very constant, to be honest, right? What has gone up in house prices, let's say, is basically this, it's not that the house price has gone up, it's that your currency has gone down.
Right.
Right. And the governments all want their currencies to go down because they have so much debt.
Yeah.
It makes their debt much easier to pay off.
Right, I see.
You got it?
Yeah.
Right. So a bond, right? Most bonds are 10 or 20 years, right? So you're saying basically, a bond is basically saying I will pay you a certain level of interest, and at the end of 20 years, I'll give you the original amount back. So £1,000 bond, you give your yield each year 1% a year, and then at the end of the period you get your £1,000 back, right? Well, if at the end of that period your £1,000 isn't worth £1,000 today, it's actually worth £500.
Yeah.
£400, £300, right? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And you can keep refining all the way up, right? You can just keep refinancing all the way up the curve.
Yeah. So then,
what would you do if you're a central bank?
Yeah. Well, the other thing I was going to say, so if cryptocurrency is such a threat to central banks and to the system, I'll give you my experience or example of what happened to me with crypto. So I think it was about just over 4 years ago now, I started buying not Bitcoins plural, but like sort of percentages of Bitcoin using a mobile phone app. And like I had this idea that I was like, do you know what? I spend a fuckload on coffee every day. I was going into the office like 3 coffees a day in this little cafe, and I just thought I'll make a coffee in the little shitty cafe like kitchenette bit, and instead every time I'm going up for a coffee, I'll just buy like a coffee's worth of Bitcoin, right? Just, more than anything, just to show how much I was fucking spending on coffee every day and every month. So off I went doing this, and I ended up putting about 250, 300 quid into it. And I was shocked by how much the value of this was going up. It was just every day going, like, this was really in that sort of first burst of Bitcoin like shooting up in value. And it reached a peak of, I think from memory, about 1.2k or 1.3k. And I was like, this is amazing. Biggest advocate for crypto ever. And And then my son was about to be born, and we decided to go on like a baby moon thing. And I thought, oh well, this will pay for like us going away and spending money and stuff. So I said to my girlfriend, I was like, yeah, don't worry about it, I'll pay for it. I've got my Bitcoin money, and I'd got like a Visa thing that I could literally draw the cash out with. And then literally the day before we were going away on this baby moon, I tried to draw out like 200 quid the night before just to get some bits and bobs, and it just said no, like declined. And I was like, what the fuck? And then I thought, oh, it must just be that ATM. Next day, we're at the airport and I'm trying to draw up money with this thing, and it's like, no, can't do it. Then I started Googling frantically, going like, what the fuck is going on with this? And I found this, like a news report saying that not the actual card issuer, but the card issuer's thing that they got the license from or something they'd had their license revoked immediately with no notice, over something to do with like government confidence in crypto or something. And it like I lost not just £1,000 out of it, but like the headache of having to transfer. Like I managed to get the money to my friend's Italian account by SEPA transfer or something, and then he had to convert it to euros and then send it to his UK. Anyway, like there was a really long pain in the arse, and it whittled down to £300 that I managed to get out at the end of it. And after that, I was like, what a fucking ball ache.
Oh, sorry to hear.
I'd lost basically everything that I'd made on it. And it just made me think, okay, well, let's say odds on, I think, that Bitcoin will continue to go up in value. It might not be drastically the way that it was over those first few months.
Yeah.
But probably it's a good investment because it's the chairman of the board in terms of crypto. But if I continue to invest, let's say I put in 10K or 50K this time, and then a central bank or their friend in government or somebody basically says this is a real threat to central banks everywhere and to the system, let's cancel them, let's pull out their license last minute. Like I can't afford to lose 50 grand. So I wonder, how is this going to play out? Because at some point, the new kid on the block of crypto and the oldie worldy of central banks is really going to come to a head, right? So how are we going to make those two play nicely?
Well, and this is the absolute nub of it, right? So on one hand, one end of the spectrum, you've got this idea that the central banks and the regulators are going to basically ban this, right? So they've tried that in various ways, but the thing is about crypto, and this is the beauty of it, right? And this is why it's was originally enjoyed by Silk Road and all the dodgy people you can imagine that inhabit the dark web.
Yeah.
I can see that 1,000-yard look in your eye when I mentioned the dark web.
No, so, the dark web, you say? Yeah.
So on one hand, they can try and ban it, but there's always going to be a Russia or Panama or somewhere you can go, right? To you can just fly in for the day and then just release it and put it into rubles, whatever, right? Someone's always going to offer crypto tourism, right? So I think they've realised that the genie's out the bottle and they can't do anything about it, right? So then what they tried to do is say, right, we're going to have our own digital currencies.
Yeah.
And you're seeing like rumors about this, white papers written by Bank of England and other people, Italians talking about mini bots, all these various different ideas kind of floating around, right? And this is really, really fascinating, right? Because the government can have their own digital currency, right? And again, it just so happens that with crypto, we can suddenly now just ban physical currencies, right? We can just move everybody into it. Now, governments love that, right? Because suddenly there's no crime anymore. Right? It's very hard to transact crime. If you've got no cash, this sort of idea of the cashless society, the government can see everything you're doing, right? Which means they can tax you on everything you're doing, and they love that, right? They have control, right? They can see everything. They love that as well, right? So all the sort of really terrible, scary things that we're experiencing in 2020 are kind of all coming to a head. And frankly, it's got nothing to do with COVID. It's got way more to do with surveillance society and all the other sort of issues that we're experiencing in sort of governments globally. And we see that manifesting itself in the Chinese Communist Party and the way they treat individuals, the way that they have facial recognition, the way they're scoring their citizens. We can kind of see a roadmap for where things are going, right? And it doesn't look good, right? It's frankly terrifying.
I think the most scary thing about that is if let's say that we move into a government sanctioned cryptocurrency, or the US and the UK and the EU all decide in unison, okay, look, Bitcoin is too big to, like you say, like to put the genie back in the bottle. Let's try and formalize it. Let's try and put some structure around it, and then make it our own like thing, and regulate it. The most terrifying thing about that is, I mean, how the fuck are you going to buy drugs if the government can see what you're doing? This is devastating.
Yeah. But you know, but I mean, I would posit, I mean, I understand that that is a big concern for some people, but I would posit what's even scarier about that is they say, right, you, Tom, right, it's a digital currency, right? They can apply whatever interest rate they want, right? So for people who are, you know, I'm doing okay, let's put it that way, right? They'll say, right, you're going to have a negative interest rate of 5%, right? They want people who have money to go out and spend, right? So the wealthier you are, the higher effectively your negative interest rate will be, right? So you're out spending money and recycling money in the economy. So the £100 you have today is only going to be worth £80 in a couple of months' time, basically. So you're incentivized to spend it. And then they can give pensioners a savings rate, right? So they can give pensioners a plus 5% pension rate. Right? So you can have like bespoke, you know, inflation rates or interest rates, positive or negative, and they can punish you.
Do you think it will get that radical? I imagine if they did something like that, people would be in uproar. They would just be like, no, that's like everyone is equal, and if I save £10 this week, then it should be the same rate as like my mum or gran.
Honestly, I think we're just a few years away from Blade Runner at this point.
Really?